Hello, I'm Matt.
And I'm Karen.
Welcome to Live Interactive English.
Today we're looking at the science of melting ice. Ooh, sounds fun. But when I think of science, I think about a lot of fun experiments that you can do. Have you done any fun or interesting science experiments?
Yeah, I think experiments are a great and fun way to learn about science. And one experiment I've actually done with a classroom full of kids is that you take a bowl and you fill it with water.
Okay.
And then on the surface of the water, you sprinkle pepper so it floats on top of the water so it's covering evenly.
All right.
Then you take a drop of dish soap and drip it right into the center of the water, or you can actually put it on your finger also and dip your finger into the water.
And then what happens?
All the pepper spreads to the outside of the bowl.
Wow, I'm pretty sure the kids were amazed, right?
Yeah, it's a really cool thing and the kids are very impressed.
And that is only one of the fun experiments that you can do in science class. But however, today we're not talking about pepper. We are talking about the science of melting ice. But I don't know, right now I can only think of heat. Just leave it out in the sun and it will eventually melt, right?
That's one way to deal with it. So I know that especially in Taiwan, once it's out of the freezer, your ice is probably going to melt pretty quick. So.
Exactly. Well, I guess, we'll have to wait and see what we're going to learn in today's article.
Let's find out about the science of melting ice.
All right.
Question. Which one of these substances can best melt ice on the road? A. Sand. B. Salt. C. Pepper. D. Chalk powder. The answer is salt. But how does it work? The key is knowing that when substances are dissolved in water, water's freezing point is lowered. Snow or ice always has a thin layer of water on the surface. When salt is added, it dissolves as the water molecules pull the sodium and chloride ions in the salt, NaCl, apart. At 0 degrees Celsius, ice's usual freezing point, these ions block the water molecules from sticking together to form ice. The solution must be cooled below 0 degrees Celsius to become a solid. As a result, the ice begins to melt, which creates more liquid water and even more ice melts.
So we're looking at the science of melting ice today, right?
That's right. So we're going to ask a question and we're going to learn about how to melt ice. So the question is, which one of these substances can best melt ice on the road? A. Sand. B. Salt. C. Pepper. D. Chalk powder.
Let me think. Could it be pepper?
I think it's close to pepper. Something you might use with pepper.
Oh, I know. The answer is salt. Okay, well, let's find out why. But how does it work? The key is knowing that when substances are dissolved in water, water's freezing point is lowered. Okay, I see. So we have that word dissolved in water. So when you talk about the word dissolve, it's something that's mixed with liquid and then it's mixed together, it blends in with the liquid. That's called dissolved, right?
Yeah, sometimes when you're making like a drink, sometimes you do the drink powder and you put the drink powder and you gotta stir till it's all dissolved.
And then you cannot see the powder anymore.
So it's all dissolved.
That's right.
And in here we have a vocabulary word which is lower, and that is a verb. That means to make something lower than it is now, so to bring it down or to make it less. So in this case, we were talking about temperature and the freezing temperature being at 0, and if it needs to freeze at a lower temperature, it needs to be maybe -0 or -2. We can also use lower to talk about physical things. For example, if you want to go fishing, you'll need to lower your hook into the water to bring it down. We have an example sentence, the damage to the car has lowered its value.
So that means it was not as expensive as it was before because of the damage, right?
Yeah, so it'd be cheaper to buy this car now. The price is lower.
Okay, let's continue. Snow or ice always has a thin layer of water on the surface. When salt is added, it dissolves as the water molecules pull the sodium and chloride ions in the salt, NaCl, apart. At 0 degrees Celsius, ice's usual freezing point, these ions block the water molecules from sticking together to form ice. Oh.
Okay, so a lot of scientific words in there. So first, molecules. Molecules are the small things that make up everything. Really the smallest part of things that make up everything we see. Everything in the world is made of molecules.
That's right. And we also have this word surface, right? Thin layer of ice, thin layer of water on top of the surface. Surface just means on top, right? On the outer layer of something, right? Okay. And then we also have another vocabulary word, to stick. And that is a verb. To stick just means to be attached to something, to be glued together, to stay together. So for example, the cookies had stuck to the pan, so I used a knife to remove them. And that happens a lot when you are baking cookies, right?
And this word stick also has some other words that are related, like when something is sticky. So maybe you have something, you touch some tree sap or some glue and it'll be sticky.
That's
and
right.
another word is sticker.
Ah.
So when you have a sticker, it's like a piece of something that you can stick onto things. Maybe you can have a smiley face sticker on your suitcase.
That's right, and kids love stickers, right? You can stick them on anything. Okay, let's continue. The solution must be cooled below 0 degrees Celsius to become a solid. Okay.
As a result, the ice begins to melt, which creates more liquid water and even more ice melts.
Okay, so that's why we use salt to actually melt ice, right?
Yeah, that's why. So that was the answer to our question that of those 4 things, we can use salt to melt ice and it will do the best.
That's right. Okay, well, how about let's take a short break and we'll be right back.
Let's do it.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。今天的课文标题是 The Science of Melting Ice。那么课文一开始就丢了一个问题说，以下这些物质中哪一种最能融化路上的冰呢 ？A. 沙 B. 盐 C. 胡椒 D. 粉笔灰。同学们有猜到吗？答案就是盐。不过它是如何起作用的呢？这关键就是要知道说，物质溶解于水中的时候，水的凝固点会降低。好，那么单字 lower 它是当动词，就表示降低、减少。那么文中用到 dissolve， 在 solve 这个动词前面再加上 dis， 构成这个动词则表示溶解的意思哦。还有 freezing point， 它是指凝固点，也就是液体会开始变成固体的温度。好，那课文接着解释说，雪或冰的表面总是会有一层薄薄的水。那么加入盐的时候，随着水分子把盐里面的钠和氯离子分开，那盐就会溶解。在摄氏0度的时候，这些离子会阻挡水分子附着在一起，然后形成冰。而这种溶液呢，它必须要冷却到摄氏0度以下才会变成固体。结果冰就开始融化啦，然后产生更多的液态水，就会有更多的冰融化了。我们来补充一下一些比较难的单字 ，molecule 它是指分子，那么 sodium 就是钠 ，chloride 表示氯化物，还有 ion 或者是 ion 这2种念法。那 ion 这个字就表示离子的意思。我们再来看单字 stick， 它表示粘住、固定住。这个动词它的3态是 stick、stuck、stuck。我们在 stick 后面加上 er 变 sticker， 那就是贴纸、粘贴标签。如果你是在 stick 后面加上字尾 y 变成形容词 sticky， 它可以形容是黏的、有粘性的。那说到黏黏的 ，Matt 老师他就想到这个胶水和树的汁液 ，sap S-A-P sap 就可以表达树的汁液。好，这边一个重点，我们进入文法时间。好，我们来看这个重点是 pull apart， 它表示拆开、使分开。那它当及物用的时候呢，受词常常会摆在 pull 跟 apart 之间。我们用 pull something apart 就表示把点点点分开。那它也可以当不及物用，这时候表示散开、解体的意思。举例来说 ，She pulled the bread apart and spread butter on the insides。她把面包掰开，然后在内层涂上奶油。那我们再造一个例句 ：The chicken pulled apart easily and was delicious. 鸡肉很容易撕开，也就是它煮到很嫩的嘛，一下就撕开，而且非常的美味。那我们接着回到课文中。
There are some problems with using salt to melt ice, however. Too much road salt spoils the water quality of rivers and lakes. It can also hurt fish, insects, and the soil. For this reason, people can also use environmentally friendly substances like baking soda, vinegar, or sugar to melt snow. Try experimenting for yourself. What other household items can melt ice?
Welcome back, everyone. So we're still talking about salt, right? And how it melts ice.
Yep, we're talking about the best way to melt ice, and we found out that of those 4 things listed, that salt is the best thing to use. So let's continue to learn more about how to use salt to melt ice.
All right.
There are some problems with using salt to melt ice, however. Too much road salt spoils the water quality of rivers and lakes.
So that means it's actually not that environmentally friendly, right?
I guess if you use too much, it's not. Because there's salt in everything, there's salt in every living thing anyway. But I think too much salt can apparently spoil the water quality.
That brings us to our next vocabulary word, to spoil, and that is a verb. So when you say to spoil the quality of the water, actually you're talking about to have something that has a bad effect on something. So for example, a headache spoiled my trip to the beach. So before, maybe I'm thinking going to the beach, I'm going to relax and enjoy it, have a great time, but I have a headache, so I can't really enjoy it that much. But you can also say he spoils his daughter. That's also using it as a verb. But when you say a parent, your dad, your mom, your grandparents spoils a child, that means you kind of give them anything they want, and then you don't really set boundaries, and then they become really spoiled, and then they just think I can do anything I want.
That's
right?
Yeah, so
That's not good.
Yeah, so it means to make something worse or make it not as good as it was. So if you have milk that's too old, also you can say, oh, the milk spoiled. And you can say it's rotten now. And you can also say that spoiled child is rotten.
That's right.
So another vocabulary word we have is quality. And quality is a noun, meaning how good something is, the level of how good it is. So if we say something is high quality, it means very good. But if something is low quality, it means it's bad. It's not good. So our example sentence says, the quality of the restaurant's food has gone down in recent months.
So maybe it doesn't taste as good, or maybe they don't use food that is really, really fresh anymore.
It's not as good as it was. The quality is down.
Okay, well, let's continue. It can also hurt fish, insects, and the soil. Okay, so it's not a good idea when you use too much of it, right?
Yeah, fish live in lakes and rivers. They're not used to salt water like those living in the ocean. So they don't want a salty lake is not good for the fish.
Okay, for this reason, people can also use environmentally friendly substances like baking soda, vinegar, or sugar to melt snow. Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I wonder, but wouldn't too much sugar also have some effect on you don't want really sweet lakes or rivers either. So
exactly, and you'll probably attract a lot of ants, right?
So.
Okay.
Try experimenting for yourself. What other household items can melt ice? Okay.
Try experimenting for yourself. I love experimenting, different things, but what does that mean?
Okay, so experiment is a verb, and to experiment means to try or test something to find out more about something. So in this case, you can try and experiment with things in your kitchen or around your house with ice and see if that melts them, so you'll learn from experimenting which things best melt ice. Our example sentence says, Scientists often experiment on animals like monkeys and mice.
And I know that some people might be against it because of animal testing. They believe that it's pretty cruel if you just take animals and then you experiment on them, right?
But there can be experimenting on animals which is not harmful to the animals. Like,
True.
maybe you have a maze for a rat.
Oh, you're right. Definitely right. Okay. And we do have a question. What do you think? Question for everyone and you.
Okay.
So why are sand, pepper, and chalk not ideal choices to melt ice on the road?
Okay, so salt is a better choice to melt ice because salt lowers the freezing temperature of water. And I guess the other things don't, although I haven't been experimenting yet to find out.
You learned something from our article.
Right, so maybe we'll have to try some pepper, some sand, and some chalk later to see if that
will work.
I guess it doesn't work.
I don't know, but it's always fun to experiment, right?
Yes,
Okay, well, thank you for joining us today, and we hope you had a good time.
And I hope you learned something.
That's right. And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
刚刚说到盐最能融化路上的冰，但其实用盐来融化冰会有一些问题。过多的路盐会破坏河川和湖泊的水质，也会伤害鱼啊、昆虫和土壤。因此呢，可以使用对环境友善的物质，像是小苏打 （baking soda）、醋 （vinegar） 或者是糖等等。那同学们也可以试着自己实验看看，还有什么其他家用品能用来融冰。好，单字 spoil 它是动词，表示破坏、损坏。那么 spoil 还可以指宠坏、溺爱的意思，也可以用来表达食物等等它变质、腐败了。再看到 quality 它表示品质，是个名词。那么 experiment 在这边是当动词，它表示做实验，用什么来做实验。那我们说 experiment on 加名词，就表示在什么身上做实验。那这边一个重点，我们进入文法时间。好，我们来学习 try 加动名词跟 try 加不定词的差异。这个动词 try 它表示尝试，可以接动名词 VING 或者是接不定词 to V， 但是它们意思不同哦。我们先来看 try 加动词 ING 的时候，是表达尝试做某事，看看结果如何。那这时候动词 ING 表示所做的事或所用的手段。假设朋友在用讯息一直在联络某个人，他都联络不上，你就可以建议他说 Try calling him on his phone， 你试试看打手机给他嘛。好，再看到 try to 加上原形动词，这时候它是表达设法努力做某事，但不一定会成功哦。这时候这个 to V 不定词的部分是表达想达到的目的。举例来说 ，We've been trying to get in touch with him all day。我们一整天都试着要跟他取得联系。好，那么以上是这些讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
Question: Which one of these substances can best melt ice on the road? A. Sand. B. Salt. C. Pepper. D. Chalk powder. The answer is salt. But how does it work? The key is knowing that when substances are dissolved in water, water's freezing point is lowered. Snow or ice always has a thin layer of water on the surface. When salt is added, it dissolves as the water molecules pull the sodium and chloride ions in the salt, NaCl, apart. At 0 degrees Celsius, ice's usual freezing point, these ions block the water molecules from sticking together to form ice. The solution must be cooled below 0 degrees Celsius to become a solid. As a result, the ice begins to melt, which creates more liquid water and even more ice melts. There are some problems with using salt to melt ice, however. Too much road salt spoils the water quality of rivers and lakes. It can also hurt fish, insects, and the soil. For this reason, people can also use environmentally friendly substances like baking soda, vinegar, or sugar to melt snow. Try experimenting for yourself. What other household items can melt ice?
Rice School is surrounded by fertile paddies and flowers in northern Taitung County. An old rice mill and granary were transformed into the school to promote the county's high-quality rice. Visitors have a chance to learn about the rice-producing process and become familiar with the region's agriculture.
这点米好吃呢，大概是我们把它总归来，就是特殊的地形影响的气候造就农产品品质的差异。那来到这里呢，这个是我们原本的碾米厂。那我们虽然盖了新厂，这旧厂有完完整整保留下来。作用是呢，希望大家能够开始去重视你的食物。从重视食物以后呢，开始去尊敬土地，去认识农夫感谢农夫。那用这样的方式呢，让大家开始去了解你吃的食物怎么来的。所以我们把这个旧的碾米工厂呢，把它转型成为一个大家可以来学习参观的一个场域
This place offers interactive experiential courses on rice making. Tourists can experience hand-packed rice tutorials and take the rice home.
我们认为塑胶袋、纸袋其实都是过度包装，不管你用什么环保纸，什么都是过度包装。我们认为应该回到祖祖辈辈以前要吃多少买多少的年代，就是拿着麻袋，然后到我们店里来，自己要吃多少就做多少米回去。
关山米好好吃。
Tourists also can buy gourmet meals made from local produce here. The store sells locally produced, high-quality rice and Guanshan rice products. Be sure to visit the rice school while in Taitung.
See you next time!